starters, I'd like to introduce my personal F-86 pilot hero, Captain Warren V. Stubbs, retired. Warren flew with the 416th Fighter Bomber Squadron, part of the 479th Wing. Okay, checking my brain cells here. So, Warren was in the class of 53C, Aviation Cadet class, or 53E. Yeah. So unfortunately, Warren finished his cadet school right as the war ended. So Warren was not able to get to Korea, but Warren served for 10 years flying Sabres from basically 1951 to 1961. And the middle poster over there, those are pictures of Warren as a young airman getting into his T-33 training jet on down to his Sabrejets that he flew. And Warren can speak about the F-86s, and he flew the F-86F, which was our final and best version. Well, not final version, because it went on with the J, K, and L and H, but for aerial combat, the F-86F 30 version was considered our top-of-the-line production model for dogfighting. The other Sabres that were built at that point were the H, which was designed to carry the atom bomb, and Warren also had the experience of practicing aerial bombing for the atom bomb. So Warren did labs, which is the low altitude bombing, did with HABs, high altitude bombing, and you know, pretty much, I don't know if you've ever seen a Sabre. I've been able to watch some movies or documentaries, but basically for the low altitude bombing, you go in low on the deck, and then when you're approaching your target, you pull up sharply, you lob the bomb, and you hope that you're out and gone before it goes off. So the high altitude is pretty much standard bombing procedure. But the F-86, once it got established in theater, ended up the war with, at that point, was a 14-to-1 or 10-to-1 kill ratio over the MiGs. Now, that was somewhat of an exaggerated figure, and as we all know that in the fog of battle, things tend to get a little exaggerated. And at that point, a lot of the pilots who were trying to get enough kills for being ace, you know, were sure that that MiG that they shot and was trailing smoke crashed and was a confirmed kill, when in fact a lot of them weren't. A lot of them managed to nurse their way back to North Korea, to Anchong, and the other Chinese airfields that they operated out of. So when the collapse of the Soviet Union and Russia opened up all of their records from Korea, it was pretty well established that it was more of a 3-to-1, 2-to-1 kill ratio, still in our favor, but a lot of the planes that we claimed, and same thing on their side, a lot of the planes, Sabres, they claimed they shot down. In fact, some weren't even in service that day. So, but the Sabre just was our first swept-wing fighter, was the mainstay of our Air Force up through the 50s to the late 50s, when it started to be replaced by the Century Series aircraft, the F-100 Super Sabre, F-101 Voodoo, F-102 Delta Dagger, F-104 Starfighter, F-105 Thunder Chief, or the Thud as they call it, because it was a heavy aircraft, and when it landed, it made a big thud. So, when it was shot down. And the F-106 Delta Dart were pretty much the planes that got into production in the late 50s, early 60s. I don't know if you guys enjoy animated movies, but The Iron Giant, which came out a few years ago, is a great animated movie about the 1950s. It's, the gist of the story is this kid from Maine encounters a iron giant from space that falls in the coast off the coast of Maine. Over the course of the movie, you find out about the government agents that they sent to investigate this fireball, because the government was sure in the movie that it was a Russian-built, like Sputnik, something that we had to be aware of. So this agent comes in, he's snooping around. Eventually, he does find that there is this iron giant wandering around the Maine countryside, and through a series of great feints and deceptions, the kid manages to keep this iron giant from being discovered until the end of the movie. Now, the end of the movie, again, you've got the Nautilus there, and you've got the Nautilus launching ICBMs, which I don't know if the Nautilus could or not, but for the movie, it was good plot. They definitely, typical Hollywood, they definitely took some liberties with the facts. But one of the things that they did include in the movie, which of course really struck close to home for me, is that at the end of the movie, when they're trying to destroy the Iron Giant, they call the Air Force, because the Army's already there, the Navy's off the coast of Maine, so they call the Air Force. And of course, what plane do they send? The F-86 Sabrejet. So it shows the Sabres coming in, and classic F-86 bomber tactics. They come in, and this Iron Giant, who now is shown he can fly as well because of jet rockets at his feet or whatever. He's up flying whoops around the Sabres. So I definitely took that to be, a stretch of reality. But anyways, I collect a lot of things Sabre related. I have a lot of movies, the Joe McConnell story, Sabrejet, which is a 1953 movie that came out with Alan Ladd, and who was the woman, remember who the lead was?
Yeah, just forgot it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't remember either, but it's a great movie because that movie actually shows, it takes place early in Korea, and they're flying out of a base in Japan. At that point, the wives are still over there, and so you've got kind of almost parallel running stories where you've got, the men who get the Sabrejets or the F-80s or the F-84s for ground support, which was interesting because you wouldn't have the same pilots flying all these different planes. But they take off, they go over to Korea, and they're fighting in dogfights and stuff with the MiGs. And then they come home at the end of their mission, and they get out of the debriefing, and their wives are all waiting there at the gate for them, and the wives are all prettied up, gussied up, and looking pretty happy to see their home. But the other storyline of the movie is what the wives go through during the day, from listening to the planes take off in the morning to all their superstitions about not looking at the planes when they're taking off. And other stuff, because in their mind, whether they speak about it or not, they're scared to death that their husbands aren't going to come back that day. And the reality of the movie is that a couple of them don't make it back, and you see what happens. And it just, it's a good movie from that perspective. It shows it's not your classic, Hollywood war movie, that it just shows all the fighting and stuff, but it actually shows the human side of the conflict as well. So, June Allison, there you go, thanks. Yeah. I mean, for all these wives who were over in Japan that looked like June Allison, I mean, that, sign me up, I'm ready to go. But I think we all know that that wasn't necessarily the case. So, but anyways, that's, I'll conclude JC by talking about my quick history with the Sabre. When my brother, Airman 3rd Class John Thomas Deegan, came home on leave in 1962, being a mischievous little 8-year-old brother I was, while he was downstairs talking to my mom, I went upstairs and started digging through his duffel bag. Well, the pilots in Korea were not allowed, were not supposed to cross the Yalu River pursuing MiGs or to the Chinese airfields. but they did it anyways. They turned off their transponders so our radar couldn't track where they were, and they ended up with a lot of kills that way because they would get the MiGs landing or in some cases taking off. So the lesson that I learned, similar to the Sabre pilots, was that if you're somewhere you're not supposed to be, don't get caught. So Johnny came up and caught me going through his aircraft identification cards, and I got a chewing out and a spanking, a walloping that, taught me that lesson. If you're gonna be somewhere you're not supposed to be, don't get caught. But over the years, it seemed that I crossed paths with Sabrejets on a fairly regular basis. The black frame Sabre there, 1968, I was at Euclid Beach Park, and they had it back in those days when airplanes were a lot more exciting than football stars or rock stars or whatever to the kids. I put my quarter in, and out popped this F-86 Sabrejet. So I said, oh, this is meant to be. So, and then I've got a little blue sign over there, which is a Raleigh bike sign. And I actually found that sign at a Brecksville bike shop. And I went in and I told the owner of the bike shop, I said, I'd like to buy that Raleigh bike sign from you. He goes, why? It's just an old sign. I said, well, I don't care about Raleigh bikes. And I know they used, built of steel construction and durable and fast. But, thanks, JC. My assistant will display the object that I'm discussing.
You should have an assistant with legs.
But in the background are F-86 Sabrejets. So eventually I browbeat the guy into selling it to me at a cost probably double of what it would have cost anywhere else. But here, JC, let me have that for a second.
Oh, sure.
And again, thanks to my resident Sabre expert here, when I first saw it, the Sabre here has 2 gun ports. And I first thought, well, that's got to be an F-84 then, if it's only got 2 gun ports. But it doesn't have the straight nose of an F-84 Thunderjet. And Lauren pointed out to me that the F-86H actually had 2 gun ports because they put cannons instead of the Browning M3 Colt Browning machine guns, 50 caliber machine guns in the Sabre at that point. So, anyways, that's pretty much my story of the Sabrejets. I caught the artwork. I bought a few items. I didn't bring all my Sabrejet artwork because I figured that you guys would be interested in seeing the F-86A, the F-86C, D, E, 2 Fs. But I did bring one piece of artwork there from an artist down and actually he flew in the Marines and flew F-4s in Vietnam, but just phenomenal artist. And I found that online and
This one?
yep, and contacted the artist and went into my diatribe about being a Sabre aficionado, and he sent me a copy of it signed. And it's basically probably somewhere out in Nevada or the desert. You got Route 66 here, and you got your classic turquoise colored Chevy there.
57 Chevy.
57 Chevy. And the little girl's face in the back window, which is just in awe of these Sabres, is actually his daughter that he used for that. But it's showing the Sabre buzzing the car, and I understand that although they were told not to and not supposed to, that buzzing of cars and bases and homes did occur on a regular basis. So I read somewhere that the FU numbers, which is the fighter unit numbers, were called buzz numbers, so that if they buzzed you, you could identify what plane it was to report it. So, thanks, GC. Okay, I brought some books that I've read along with my movies in the library. I've got a extensive book collection. Sabre Pilot is a fictional book written by Stephen Magar in 1964, I want to say. I read it in 5th grade, so I was in 1965, I was in 5th grade. I read it cover to cover, ended up taking it out and reading it several more times. And as I grew up and got into adulthood, I decided that I wanted to have a copy of Sabre Pilot for my collection. And this is before Amazon, the internet and stuff. So I went down to the Cleveland Public Library and they checked and they said, yes, we do have one copy in our archives. I said, great, can I check it out? So I went to the archives and the woman put the book on the counter and I looked at it and I said, well, what happens if my dog chews it up or it falls into the Cuyahoga River or something? And she gave me a very stern look and she said, well, then you're gonna have to pay $20 to replace it. I grabbed my wallet, pulled out $20, put it on the counter, I said, there's your $20, the book's mine. So I commandeered that book from the Cleveland Public Library. And then a couple of other books, Taking Fires actually about Vietnam. It's about air rescue. Phenomenal book, and I happened to meet one of the pilots who flew F-4s in Vietnam and then flew Sabrejets after he got out of the Air Force and was in the book, and so he was telling me about it. He sent me a copy of it signed, and one of the helicopters that was involved in this rescue is down in the Wright-Patterson Air Force, National Air Force Museum. And just, about 2 Phantoms that got jumped by 2 MiG-21s, and both of them ended up getting shot down. And as they were going down, the procedure is always the weapons systems officer, the backseater, ejects first. And the pilot keeps the plane steady, and then the pilot ejects. Which unfortunately did not work well for these 2 weapons systems officers, because they both ejected and came down close to Vietnamese villagers, who of course were armed militia, and got captured. The 2 pilots ended up miles down the road when they ejected, and the one pilot that the book's about actually came down on the side of a ravine, and his parachute got caught up in some trees, but it was virtually impossible to get a helicopter in there to rescue him. And it's just, again, great reading, great story, all accurate. What they were able to do, what they had to do. They had A-1 flying cover. They had several helicopters go in. The one helicopter got a fuel line damaged and it was leaking fuel. So literally you had to refuel almost all the way back to Thailand. So, and I also learned about that, the difference between the boots on the ground in Vietnam, considered the Vietnam War, whereas the pilots in the air, a lot of them flew out of Thailand, considered it the Southeast Asia War. So, I keep learning. Every time I get together with Warren, he always educates me on something new. And matter of fact, this very hat is the story of the beginning of our relationship. I won't bore you all. I've bored you enough. Thank you for your patience and time. I do have a copy of the story I wrote for, I was asked to write a story about my experience with Sabrejets and being invited. The way that I got into the F-86 Sabre Pilots Association without having ever been in the Air Force or flown a Sabre is thanks to Warren. Warren decided that because of my interest and passion for Sabres, that he should submit an application for me for membership. So we got together, we put it together, we sent it into Las Vegas. I got a call from J.R. Alley in the afternoon saying, Tom, we're really sorry, but most of us are in our 80s and 90s now, and membership is declining pretty rapidly, so we're going to stand down. This is in 2016. We're going to stand down after this reunion, so it'll be our 21st and final reunion. So I was disappointed, and I thanked him for his time, and we had a nice conversation. And later on that evening, I get another call from J.R. Alley. He says, Tom, I presented your application to the board, and they decided that you should be our last and final honorary member inducted into the association before we close the doors. So out at the reunion, I picked up the nickname Tail End Tommy. And that was because I was the last member to sneak in the back door before it closed, as they were closing the front door. But, you know, I thank you guys for your service. I thank you for listening patiently to me. And,
Any questions from,
any questions?
Yeah,
Yes.
where do you go every morning? to
I'm
sit
sorry?
down? Where do you go to have coffee every morning?
Oh, I'm not allowed to tell you that.
You'd have to shoot me?
Huh?
You'd have to shoot me if you told me that.
No,
I just think it'd be really nice.
the gentleman that gave me this information
Yeah,
is a very quiet, very personal guy, and he just made, you know, said, well, I'll talk to you here, but I don't want my name out there, I don't want, you know, calls, you know, anything, so I respect his wishes.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I just wondered, is it locally?
Oh, yeah,
Here?
yeah. It's right up Route 82 in Sagamore.
Okay.
So,
I could probably figure it out, but I just think it was really nice.
I'm sorry?
I thought it was very nice.
Yes.
The story he just told about how he got into the association, the story's up with your picture with the Sabrejet, which Kresnicki says, who's your friend who collects Sabrejets, you know? Well, he doesn't collect them, you know, he's a...
Well, I found one for sale.
But anyhow, you can see the story on Nordonia Hills News.news, local electronic newspaper.
I
And,
did found an F-86F for sale. Comes with two, I think he's at 180 gallon wing tanks, external wing tanks. Only,
Yeah,
I think
you
it's
used to go on
475,000.
the Aviation Gazette or whatever it's called and find Sabrejets for sale. They dropped, I mean, at one point they were being sold for $750,000. Now they're being sold for $200,000.
No, this one was 475, and they only had 4,400 hours on the airframe and 408 hours since the engine overhaul.
Huh.
So it's not bad shape.
No, no, and a lot of people were buying the old Canadian Sabres because the Canadian Mark VI was considered the best of the Sabres that were built by us or our allies. So,
I'll give some word for Lauren to get them where they gotta go once they sell them, huh?
I can do that.
I also, through Warren's influence, I joined the MAPS Military Aviation Preservation Society Museum down at the Akron Canton Airport. And I did bring some brochures along for you guys. If anybody has an interest, it's $20 a year, which, you know, with myself being on disability and fixed income, you know, that's still $20 of gas or whatever, but the money that goes to the membership and into the MAPS Museum, they're doing phenomenal work with. And I'm actually down there helping restore an F-86A model Sabre right now. And if you ever want to come down to MAPS, I'll be glad to take you in and show you 263. By the way, Warren, we're getting ready to put the wheels on it.
Hey,
Finally.
let me know.
So, but this Sabre has a long local history. It flew in the 1949 Cleveland Air Races and won the jet division. And in a process of the race, part of the tail broke off. So you got the aileron on the back, and they got pictures of it with this thing just broken off and mangled. And the jet still managed to finish the race and win the race. So North America got some mileage out of that. But it served locally, and then it was in Korea. At the beginning of the war, the F-86A models were the only ones that we had readily available. They got replaced fairly early by the E models. The E models were able to match the MiG-15s in their altitude and speed. Now, Warren, I left it out in the car, but the Sabrejet could reach Mach 1, could reach supersonic speeds in a dive. Now, they didn't consider that, the record keepers don't consider that really a record because it had to be in a dive, it wasn't on a straight.
Right.
But Warren is a member of the Mach Club. Warren took his Sabrejet and broke the sound barrier So, and I have a nice orange card to prove it. Warren has been kind enough to pass on me a lot of his Air Force stuff, and like I said, I've got the pictures over there, but I'm also going to be adding some stuff he's given me recently, his wings, captain's bars. So, and I consider myself privileged to have met Warren and have him as a friend. So, but I'm starting to tell this quick story, and JC interrupted me. What did you say, JC? There's an Irish name for it, storyteller?
Shanachie, yeah.
Yeah, bad with idiot, does that translate?
No,
But,
storyteller.
yeah, I was in Mark's one morning, and I'm waiting in line to check out. This guy in front of me is wearing this hat. He turns around and looks, and I see F-86 Sabre Pilots Association. So of course I get all excited, and I tap him on his shoulder. I say, "Excuse me, are you in the Sabre Pilots Association?" And Warren gives me one of his classic grumpy old man looks like, "Well, what do you think, stupid? I'm wearing a hat." But he did it. He just said yes, and I said, "Oh, did you fly Sabres?" He goes, "Yeah." So I followed him out to his car in the parking lot, just pestering him with questions and stuff. So finally he broke down and said, "Listen, I'm in here most mornings, you know, come and have a cup of coffee with me and we'll talk about Sabrejets." So we got to be good friends, and as he replaced this hat with some others, I inherited this hat. So anyways,
It's pretty good.
cut me off quick, JC, get the hook out.